Good morning, my friends. I am on a tear this morning. I tell you what, after the week or so of real estate we have had, I thought I would share you some of the hard, cold facts of the way it works in our business. So you want to be a realtor. You want to have a little part-time job where you make some big-time money. You're flexible. You work your own hours. You work when you want to. You're your own boss, right? Some of these things, all of these things to some degree can be true, but let me tell you like it is, because there's a lot of stuff that you don't hear in that description of being a realtor. Let's talk about what all you got to be a realtor. You got to be a salesman first and foremost. That one's obvious, right? You've got to have, and just saying you're a salesman, that doesn't really explain that you got to be a good salesman. To make that money, you've got to have sales skills. That's one of the parts of the job I really like, but I can promise you it is not one of the parts of the job that comes easy to a lot of people. There's a lot to being good at sales that people take for granted. Okay, so obviously you got to be able to sell. But you got to be a little bit of a counselor, a little bit of a social worker. Every buyer and every seller that I know of gets, almost every single one, gets emotional at some point along the way, because buying or selling a property is basically, especially selling, well, it depends on either one, pretty much the most expensive, big-time commitment you will make financially during your lifetime of selling property. So people who are otherwise rational and sane get stressed. They get at their wits' end, and that's what you deal with all day, every day. Multiple ones of those. So you got to be able to talk everybody off the roof. You got to be a cheerleader. You got to be able to keep everybody excited. You got to show them the positives, the upsides. Okay. You got to keep the deal together, and that takes a lot of cheering. You got to be a little bit of... Large Diet Coke, please. Thank you. You got to be a little bit of a mortician. You got to be able to go into the funeral home among the survivors of the dead deal. You got to be able to try to revive the dead deals. I guess that would be being a doctor, an ER physician, EMT. Lots of dead deals have to get revived with the paddles on the table, because deals die very quickly, deals die constantly. This last 10 to 14 days alone, I think we added up listing deals. Can't tell you the price they're under contract or sell for, because Texas is a non-disclosure state. So you also have to be a little bit of a priest. You know, you got to be able to keep that confidential. You can't tell things, you know. So, but we've had listing prices advertised of $2.1 million, $1.9 million, $250,000, $650,000, and I think there's another one. All those deals fall apart in the last 6 to 10 days, 3 of which we were on both sides of. So just add up the amount of volume that was. So you got to be able to be a mortician, EMT, emergency room physician, bringing the deals back from the dead. You got to be a clairvoyant. You got to be able to see the future, because everybody wants to know what's my house really going to sell for, and how long is it going to take. I need to know what's going to happen. And, you know, you've also got to do a little bit of a seance so that you can talk to those dead deals and be able to revive them as well. You got to be a lawyer. You got to know so much about contracts. People have no idea how hard this job is. And, of course, you got to be a lawyer that, and you must never, ever, ever practice law or give legal advice. So you got to find a way around that. So you got to be very tactful, very crafty with your wording, so that you're helping people, but you're not ever practicing law. Luckily, I'm a lawyer, so I don't really have to skirt that one as much, but I don't intend to give legal advice, so I still try to avoid it. So you've got to interpret, and yet not interpret, because you're not allowed to, extremely complicated and sometimes poorly drafted contracts and forms promulgated by TREC. Sometimes they're badly worded and sometimes they're vague, but you don't dare change them. But there are so many of these forms, you have no idea how many forms you've got to know and got to understand. You've got to be a CPA without giving accounting advice, of course, because everyone needs to understand the capital gains taxes are less than ordinary income tax, and understand the basic brackets. They need to know that you have to hold a property for at least a year and a day to get capital gains versus regular income taxes. So you better understand your tax laws, and those, by the way, change regularly as well. You got to be a scared straight sergeant. You got to be a drill sergeant. You got to be able to go in there and tell people, hey, this is what you need to do. I'm telling you, do it, and for your own good, you need to just trust me. Let's go with this, because people get on the ledge, as I've already mentioned, real regular, because it's a big, important, emotional deal. And so they sometimes need someone to make them feel confident that they're telling them the right thing, and they want to know that you got their back and you know what you're talking about. So you got to be a little bit of a drill sergeant. You got to be a private investigator. People expect you to, thank you. You know, you bring in a buyer over. Well, is this buyer any good? Who is this buyer? I don't know. It's not even my client. Well, can they afford this? Have you checked them out? So you're always on your basic apps, making sure, do they really have the job they're claiming? Do they have this? Do they have that? Are they lying? Because somehow you're supposed to know all this too. So you got to be a private eye. Hello. Yes, it's Kitty.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. You got to be a private eye. You got to know everything that's going on. You got to know what these people's motives are, because if they turn out not to be legit, it's on you. It's your fault. You got to be a security guard. You got to watch their property. Somebody better not get in that thing when they're not there and it's vacant, and somebody gets in there and walks around, because you feel responsible. So you got to keep your eyes on the place. You got to have your eye on the sky, your eye on the ground. You got to be a security guard, kind of in the same situation like we were saying. You got to be a computer data expert. You have to know how to read and analyze and calculate data. You got to be a little bit of a mathematician. You always want to know what percentage of change has happened in the marketplace lately. So you got to get some formulas down. You got to be able to run an amortization calculator and show them, if you were to pay this much extra interest, extra principal, how much interest can you save over the time. So it's a little bit of a banker. You got to understand all the mortgages, all the mortgage rates, how all the mortgage products work. So you got to be a banker as well. You got to be a social media expert. Goodness knows, because you got to get your name and your face and your personal brand out there. So that in itself is a whole full-time job. So, as we've covered, you've got to be many, many, many things to be a realtor. So everybody wants to make some of that easy money as a realtor. Come on and sign up. I got a place for you right now, and it will be the hardest job you've ever had. But that's okay, because what it does is it weeds out people who are not appropriate or prepared for that job. Expert, I would say economists, people right now are saying 2020 is when we can expect the next recession, the next slowdown. And what's that going to do? It's going to take out probably, they estimate 500,000 realtors in this country who are not equipped, who are not trained, who are not skilled, who are not educated to do one of the hardest, most technical, least respected jobs on the planet. So if you've got the grit and the determination, and you can handle it, and you can be smart, prepared, educated, and trained, and still take the fact that you better be Teflon, because everything that goes wrong is